Hi, this is David Mastio, California editor for the Center Square, and this is California in Focus. As always, I'm joined by Kenneth Schrupp, a California reporter for the Center Square. Today we're talking about disappointing test results from California public schools. Kenneth, can you give me the basics?
Sure thing. So the California State Legislature recently passed a bill requiring that the Department of Education release all of these test scores for California students in October of each year. And let me tell you, the new results are not looking great. 53% of students don't meet state literacy standards, 65% don't meet state math standards, and 70% don't meet state science standards. And for the record, California doesn't really have very stringent educational standards in the first place, so these numbers are really quite abysmal. This testing was done for students in grades 3 through 8 and grade 12 due to disruptions related to COVID, and thus don't offer a complete picture, but they do offer a very compelling picture for what's wrong with California schools.
The Democrats run California at the state level and by population in most of the state at the local level. What do they say is going on?
A lot of the explanation for these poor results is pointed at COVID-19 lockdowns and remote learning, and the increase in absenteeism that followed. There are others also who say that racial disparities in treatment of students due to suspension policies or discipline are also to blame for continuing low test scores.
This isn't the first year these tests were done and released. The results were pretty dismal before COVID, right?
California's test results have been declining since funding shifted more towards state control in the 1970s. California used to have some of the best performing public schools in the entire world, and now we're in the bottom third, I believe, of the entire nation, despite spending a significant amount per student.
What did the legislature do this year to try to turn things around?
This year, spending was increased by $3,000 per pupil, bringing us to $17,000, up from $14,000 per student in state funding. Now, remember that state funding is not all of the money that goes into a public school budget for each district. Local property taxes and local taxes of all kinds are mixed into that. And California, as a progressive state, also takes the local property taxes to redistribute them to different schools across the state so that very wealthy areas are actually helping subsidize lower income areas. This means that the actual total spending per student in California increased from about $24,000 per student per year to about $27,000 per student per year.
Why do Democrats think spending more money will work this time? It's what they did the year before and the year before that.
It's not clear at a national level whether spending more money does improve learning outcomes. National educational scores and spending per student do not have any correlation with each other. There are states that do not spend a lot of money that have excellent testing results, and that has nothing to do with the cost of living. Something else is different. They're doing other things. They're having different curriculums. They have different disciplinary standards. They're choosing to teach in a different way.
What's been happening to disciplinary standards in California?
Governor Newsom just signed a bill that eliminated suspensions for what's called willful defiance in all K through 12, including charter schools. This means that if you are completely disrupting the classroom, if you're making it so that no other student can learn, if you're bullying students, yelling, playing music on your phone, speaking over the teacher, being highly disruptive, you won't be able to be suspended.
The LA Times reports that Governor Gavin Newsom is turning to the center. Has he done anything centrist on education, like allowing more freedom for charter schools that's been tried by Democrats all over the country?
Unfortunately, Newsom has not done much to address charter schools and instead has focused on centralizing state control over curriculums and other tools of learning. Let's look at AB 1078, which he signed earlier this year, that prevents school districts from not adopting textbooks that are in line with state education requirements. This means that if you decide that you don't want to adopt a certain textbook due to content that you might find objectionable, the State Department of Education will just go ahead and buy those textbooks and then fine you directly for those, meaning that your local school board just won't have control anymore over which textbooks it can choose and not if the state decides it wants to intervene. This actually was a major point earlier this year when Temecula Valley Unified School District at first decided to not buy a state-approved textbook option for social studies for 1st through 5th graders because it included lessons on LGBTQ history that the board members thought would require explaining sex and gender at an inappropriate age. Remember, this was just for 1st through 5th graders. If you're teaching a lesson on gay civil rights to students of this age, this also means having to explain what it means to be gay. The school board thought that that was probably not appropriate for students of that age. When they said no, Gavin Newsom stepped in and said he would go ahead and purchase the textbooks and send the districts a $1.5 million fine to cover the cost. This isn't even including the lawsuits and investigations that were threatened by the Department of Justice under Rob Bonta. Of course, the school board acquiesced and ended up buying the textbooks because you just don't want to have to deal with these issues.
So the governor and the attorney general got personally involved when something that affects a minority of students wasn't going the way they wanted. Have they gotten personally involved now? When 70% of students aren't meeting already minimal standards, that seems like the schools are failing to do their job. If they got involved over much more minor issues, are they getting involved personally now to try and turn the schools around?
Not really.
Do Republicans have an alternative approach to the Democrats' plan?
Republicans offer two alternatives, the first of which Democrats are trying to directly address by removing the power of local state education boards, as we were discussing earlier. Republicans have found that parents are very unhappy with how schools are being run. Parents want their children to learn math, science, and English, and not other social theories. So Republican strategy has been to capture this parent unhappiness with public education and convert it into winning positions on school boards and running for elections in local government to try to give parents better choices for school. The other option that Republicans have been pursuing is something that they call school choice. School choice is a very broad term that has included everything from promoting more charter schools to giving direct vouchers to parents who don't want to send their kids to public schools. And the latest attempts are to improve and include a voucher system that would give every parent essentially most of the money that would be spent in state funding per student, but in a voucher or a cash savings account that they could use to spend on homeschooling or on private school. Of course, there are arguments against this that include the fact that if the vouchers are for more money than tuition tends to cost, schools are just going to raise their tuition, and that you will end up overburdening a private school system that is already completely full, and also that these vouchers might one day come with strings attached.
I'm David Mastio with the Center Square, and we've been talking with Kenneth Schrupp, California reporter for the Center Square. You can read his work at thecentersquare.com. Thank you for listening to California in Focus, and please subscribe to our podcast.